Hello there, and you're very welcome to the Arkham Avengers Podcast. You join me, the host, along with Eamon, Hector, and Captain Fantastical Mick. Join us for a chat about football, crack, bold opinions, and a touch of chaos. From drama to questionable decisions and general banter, there's something here for everyone. So sit back, stay tuned, and enjoy the show. You're very welcome to today's show. We hope that you're keeping well wherever you are in the world. Today, the panel will be taking a look back at the 25-26 season, game week by game week. They look at the managers to see how they rose and where they fell, and in some cases, where they completely collapsed under the pressure of managing week by week in their bid to try and end up in the top three and to be the ultimate winner of the league. We'll also take a look at some of the transfer activities that our managers engaged in and see, did it pay off? Meanwhile, Eamon and Captain Fantastical Mick will also give us a report of their recent visit to Clonus, where they watched the Monaghan GAA team host Mayo GAA. As always, we'll have a crack, football chat, opinions, and possibly some nonsense thrown in. Now, Hector is still away, but sends his love to all our listeners. Eamon, Mick, great to have you here today.
Thank you. It's nice to be back again for another episode, another show. I'm looking forward to looking at the game week activities and the movements of our managers. I think it'll be very interesting to see where they were going up and where they were going down and the pattern that they would have got into. But before we get into that, you said Hector is still away. Do we have an update on Hector, can I ask? And I have another question. It wouldn't be possible to send Mick over to Hector wherever he is, just in case he needs help with anything there.
Well, I can tell you now, Hector has gone home because his uncle is preparing for El Nino. Apparently, the region where he lives is prone to drought and fires, and they want to be prepared for that there.
Here. In that case, send in Captain Fantastical Mick to help prepare for a drought and fires might actually create more problems. He couldn't manage a fantasy football bench, never mind climate emergency. He'd be likely to arrive over there, stand in the middle of a field in Brazil, trying to give a motivational speech to the locals, and probably would blame Saipan for the lack of rainfall, something like that. So he would there. I mean, could you imagine the state of things after a week? Hector is trying to organise supplies and round up the chickens, while Captain Fantastical Mick is introducing a leadership structure to the village. And all of this is going on while fire is bearing down on them. No, thank you. But to be fair, if there's one man capable of talking endlessly enough to create wind patterns strong enough to move storm clouds, it's probably Mick.
And I just say that leadership is transferable, whether it's fantasy football, championship football, or helping communities prepare for El Nino conditions. The principles remain the same. You need organisation, communication, and belief. Now, Hector is over there trying to help his uncle prepare for these drought conditions and the risks of fire. And I think that's extremely admirable. And if my assistance is required, I'll be answering the call immediately because, unlike some people on this podcast, I do not run away from responsibility.
You left our group chat for 2 days, all because we wouldn't take some of your comments on board.
Well, that was a protest. A principled stand against injustice. But let me tell you something. If I went over to Hector, supplies would be organised, morale would be high. By the end of the week, there'd be proper leadership established. You might mock me now, Eamon, but history remembers the men who stepped forward in difficult conditions. Also, I have excellent experience dealing with heat and pressure.
I'm not entirely convinced you surviving a Camino walk counts as emergency management, Mick.
Greatness is rarely understood in real time.
Okay, right. I think we need to get this show back on track before Eamon launches an international review into climate policy and Captain Fantastical Mick here attempts to establish a leadership community or a leadership committee somewhere in rural Brazil. So, never mind those two for the moment. We actually do have football to discuss. We look at those game weeks where managers rose to glory and others collapsed, and who had the most transfer activity. So let's try and restore some law and order here to the proceedings. Now we're going to start with the manager who finished in 11th place and work our way up to the top of the table. I'll start off the review here. The manager we're starting to discuss is AFC Tulani. They finished the season with 1,825 points. Now that's 143 points lower than their total for 24-25. And in fact, it's their second lowest total in the 7 seasons that they've been a manager with us. This year, they got off to a reasonable decent start because they had 6 green arrows indicating that they were rising within the first 10 game weeks. And again, for the next 10 game weeks, they had another 6 weeks where they were on the rise. However, that was the end of their run. And they had 14 red arrows, which indicated a drop in the table all the way to game week 38. And that was interspaced with a couple of green arrows here, I think there was 4 of them, out of the 38 game weeks. This manager had 16 green arrows, which indicates the rise in the table. They had 21 red arrows. So they dropped that many times there. So as you can see, the damage was done to their season really took place between game week 22 all the way up to game week 38. They had 25 transfers in total, which cost them a total of 8 points. Eamon, I believe you're going to talk about the next manager.
Yes, this manager has previously been a high flyer with us, but seems to have now fallen on hard times. We're talking about Quinn's Heroes. Their total points for the season amounted to 1,903. It's their lowest point tally in 14 years. They've been 14 years a manager in this league, and this is their lowest points. And that would set off alarm bells for me there. In 2024-25, they finished the season on 2,280 points. We're talking of a difference of 377 points between that year and this year. That's a lot of points. That's a lot of concern. Overall, when I look at their season, it was very mixed. They never really got a decent run of green arrows to get them rising up that table there, from game week to game week. The best they managed to achieve was a 3-week run of green arrows, and that's really not what you expect from a manager of this caliber here. In total, they had 19 game weeks when they had green arrows, indicating a rise, but that's matched against 18 red arrows, which shows that they dropped in those game weeks there. They had 35 transfers and it didn't cost them anything. So they had all of those free transfers in place. That might be savvy, but I'm not sure it paid off.
Very interesting. Mick, you're going to talk about the manager in 9th place.
Well, we're talking about What a Beauty 99, and they amassed 1,915 points over the season. They've been managing for 9 years, and I have to say this year marks some improvement on them. They scored an extra 238 points from what they scored in 24-25. That's a positive for them there. It wasn't a great start to the season. They started off with 3 game weeks where they were under drop, and from game week 2 to 4, and then game week 6 to 7. From then onwards, it was a case of putting in little short runs of 3 game weeks at a time together where they were on the rise, but it was undone by 2 to 3 game weeks where they'd then be on the slide. So you see, they were rising for maybe about 3 weeks, and then they were dropping back every 2 or 3 weeks as well. I'd describe the season as sporadic. They were on the rise for 18 game weeks, but they fell 19. So you can see what happened there. It just didn't tally up whatsoever. Over the course of the season, they had 16 transfers, and that's quite low for a manager, I thought. And a bit like Quinn's Heroes, they didn't lose any points on the transfer activities. And sort of what Eamon just said there, that's savvy business, but is it paying off? That's the question, and I don't think it's paid off for them there.
Blightsome Squad then finished in 8th place with an overall points total of 2,011. They were 395 points off what they scored back in 2024-25. Now, from game week 2 up to game week 10, they managed 5 weeks when they had green arrows indicating a rise for them there. From game week 29 to game week 34, they had 6 green arrows indicating a rise, and they finished off the season with game week 37 and 38, where again they were on the rise. Looking at the table though for them there, game week 19 to game week 26 is where their season went off the rails, because they ended up with 7 consecutive game weeks where they were on the drop there. Overall, though, they had 21 game weeks when they were on the rise against 16 game weeks when they were on the drop there. And this manager made 41 transfers, which cost him a total of 20 points. They lost 20 points there. Now, Eamon, I'll go over to you for the next manager.
Well, I'm going to be talking about what is behind me. They finished off the season in 7th place and they had a tally of 2,037 points. Again, this was lower than what they had the previous year, and it's lower by 219 points there. And like some of the other managers we've spoken about, they had a rocky start to this season. Game week 25 to game week 30 was particularly rough, with 6 game weeks where they were on the drop. That was 6 consecutive game weeks that they dropped. And the like of that pretty much knocked the wind out of their sails and out of their chances and an opportunity of getting into a top 5 finish there. However, game week 31 to game week 35 saw a marked improvement. They had 5 game weeks of green arrows, so they were on the rise. Things were looking good. And similar to Blightsome Squad, they finished the season very well. In game week 37 and 38, positive green arrows there, doing good. They had a total of 18 game weeks when they were on the rise, and that's against 19 game weeks where they were on the drop. Inconsistency there, a little bit of problems, and I think maybe it's something with not getting the points that they need either there. On the transfer side of things, they had 40 transfers. They lost 20 points when they were making those transfers there. And when you consider that they're 219 points lower, they've lost 20 points, the maths are not adding up here.
And Mick, you have a few details possibly about the next manager.
I do, yes, thank you. So I'm talking about Silver Stroke, and they finished the season by coming in 6th position there. They amassed 2,060 points, and that's some 269 points lower than last year. And can I say this is one of our new managers, though? This is their 4th year with us. They're relatively new, and they're relatively impressed, I think, going along there. After a slight blip in game week 2, they got their season up and running with green arrows. They were on the rise from game week 3 up to game week 5. Got a little bit unsteady then after this, and things really didn't get much better between game week 11 and game week 15 because they got 5 weeks when they were on the drop there. Game week 19 to 22 saw a little bit of a fight back because they were on the rise for 4 weeks. But then all that good work was undone with game week 26 to game week 29 because saw them fall back, those 4. So they rose 4 and then they fall back 4 straight away. Now, it was a little bit of a last gasp to resurrect their season because from game week 30 to game week 34, they were on the rise for 5 of those game weeks there. There were moments of gusto that we could see from this manager, but the problem was they weren't able to keep that run going and maintain it. They put in the good stuff, and then it was undone straight away by the next couple of weeks there. So they had 18 game weeks where they were on the rise, green arrows all the way, and they had a total of 19 weeks when they were down there. As for their transfers, it's 37 transfers throughout the year, and they didn't lose any points. Didn't cost them a thing either. And there seems to be a pattern growing there with some of the managers making transfers and not losing any points. I think that's quite interesting.
And what we're going to do there now is we're going to leave a review for the moment. We're going to pause it and we're going to come back in the next show and talk about the remaining managers and see how they got on. Right, lads, I think it's time to have a little chat about last Sunday because it was off to Clonus in County Monaghan with both of you to watch Mayo taking on Monaghan in the GAA All-Ireland Senior Championship at St. Tiernach's Park. Now, I was at home watching this on the TV, and I have to say, there sounded like a really great atmosphere at this. It looked lively before the match started, and if you thought that was interesting, it certainly got more animated during the match.
Yes, there was a tremendous atmosphere, I have to say, before the match. There was a great buzz in the air. The weather stayed okay. There was a little shower of rain, but it was better than what was expected there. And I think, when you look around, you saw both fans out for an enjoyable day. There was families there, children, chips, burgers, backpacks with sandwiches, and they were there, the supporters, to support a team that they're following. It was a great experience for a lot of people.
I agree with Eamon there. It was absolutely superb. It's been years since I've been at one of these matches here. Oh, proper noise, proper colour, proper attention. A fair play to the Monaghan supporters too. Brilliant people, friendly, welcoming, and still optimistic despite Mayo absolutely flying in the first half.
Flying, you say? Look, Mayo looked like they were going to put up basketball numbers at one stage. Every time Monaghan made a mistake, Mayo seemed to appear to score a two-pointer, like they'd been launched out of a hedge. You had David McBrain, you had Ryan O'Donoghue, you had Kobe McDonald, who were causing utter chaos and looked dangerous constantly there. Meanwhile, Monaghan looked like lads who accidentally walked into the wrong exam hall for the first 20 minutes there.
But isn't that classic Mayo, Eamon? They were winning and they went in at half-time leading by a goal to 17 to 9 points.
To be honest with you, I actually thought we were heading for an early exit and a quiet drive home. Mayo looked unstoppable in the first half, and Monaghan looked like they were trying to solve a Rubik's Cube during an earthquake.
I have to say, Mayo, they were outstanding in the first half. They were fast, direct and clinical. It actually looked like Monaghan had accidentally agreed to play a challenge match against two Mayo teams. Mayo seemed to be all over the place.
They were active and it was looking very good there. And then in the second half, Mayo, who the supporters would have been forgiven for thinking that they were looking at All-Ireland contenders, Mayo forgot how to come out and manage the game and let Monaghan come roaring back.
Mayo did only what Mayo can do. They spent the second half trying to turn a comfortable afternoon into a psychological experiment. I've seen calmer Mayo supporters during power outages here.
Look at Monaghan looked like a completely different team, if you ask me. Suddenly, any loose ball was theirs. Every attack looked dangerous. And Mayo supporters, they started checking how much time was left every 30 seconds.
And doesn't that tell you something about the character of this Monaghan team? I mean, a lot of teams would have packed up after going 11 points down, but instead they dragged themselves back into the match, almost pulling off something extraordinary there.
Yes, they did, and fair play to them. They done really well there, Monaghan. They put it up to Mayo after the break, and that's the thing about the Monaghan teams. They could be 15 points down, but you'll still have players saying, now we'll have one final push at this. That's the determination and the grit that they have there.
Well, can I just say something here? The Mayo goalkeeper, Jack Livingston, he was outstanding, and he kept that team in this match, so he did there. Some of those saves, they were outstanding. He was calm under pressure, leadership from the back. That's the sort of composed performance I admire.
Here, listen to you. You admire every goalkeeper until they start conceding a scatter of goals and suddenly they've lost the dressing room then with you. But you are correct, can I say. Mayo's keeper was excellent. Can I also say Monaghan's goalkeeper, Rory Beggan? Well, he spent so much time out the pitch. He practically qualified for midfield. At one stage, he was so far forward, I thought he was about to ask for a transfer into the half-forward line.
Yeah, well, I'd say anytime Rory Beggan went forward, the Mayo supporters would feel a mix of panic, confusion, and probably whispering a quick prayer there. It was, though, this is one of the low points in the match there. Quite unfortunate for Bobby McCall there that he picked up that knee injury. He was playing out of his skin there, and watching it from the TV there, it was a real sign of respect. You saw the players and supporters of both teams applauding him as he was stretchered off. The final score ended up, though, Mayo 1 goal and 24, Monaghan 2 goals and 20. It ended with 1 point in it.
That's not game management now. That's emotional cardio, if you ask me. And I think many Mayo players and many Mayo supporters are on the brink of having cardio when they just saw they were down to 1 point there.
I always just think that Mayo supporters, they carry a lot of generational baggage, Eamon. We have to consider this. Even when things look like they're going well, Mayo are still looking like as though they're waiting for an unexpected electricity bill to come in the door with them there.
Yeah, I mean, look, Mayo just completely forgot how to play football. I mean, it's either that or they decided to come out in the second half and not really do much. I'm not sure what tactic they were using, 11 points up, and yet some of the Mayo supporters were still looking nervous. That county treats comfort like a suspicious package. And I actually had heard one Mayo supporter say as he was leaving Clonus, thank God that's over.
Well, I'm not surprised I heard that, Eamon, because I heard some Mayo supporters saying that we won, but it doesn't feel like we did win.
Well, that might be the most Mayo sentence ever spoken.
It certainly was a packed match, I have to say. I nearly would feel sorry for some of the Mayo supporters. At half-time, they're dreaming of the Sam Maguire Cup, and by the 60th minute, they're pricing defibrillators online.
Well, that's something that Eamon, back to cardio again. I'm just going to say, trying to get out of clonus afterwards was really tough, and it was that trying to recover from one of Eamon's wildcard strategies when he's talking about how to use a wildcard and what to do with it there.
Listen, you can talk there, so you can. I mean, my wildcard strategies don't involve sitting in the traffic for 45 minutes because you decided to take a wrong turn, and I'm beside a man giving leadership lectures about parking and traffic congestion.
Well, whatever about the tactics, kickouts and scorelines, one thing is for certain, supporting Mayo remains one of the great emotional adventures in Irish sport, if you ask me.
Well, you can say that again for sure. And considering that they're going to be playing Tyrone, there'll be more of that to be expected.
Well, lads, I think that probably brings us to the end of another completely normal and emotional, stable episode of this show.
Did you say normal? I mean, we started out talking about El Nino and the rise and fall of managers along with our transfers. And we've ended up discussing Mayo psychology. I mean, honestly, I'm exhausted from this, so I am there.
Well, I mean, you see, that's because greatness takes energy, so it does, Eamon. Greatness takes energy. And listeners expect leadership, analysis, they expect vision.
More like the listeners expect you to say something outrageous every 7 minutes.
But Eamon, yeah, they keep returning, don't they? That's called the presence.
Okay. Thank you both. I think we can pause there at the moment there. We do want to give a special shout out, of course, to Emma Kate, whose 12th birthday is coming up. So Emma Kate, from all of us here on the show, we hope you have a brilliant birthday and that hopefully the rain will ease off long enough for you and all your friends to enjoy that bouncy castle there. Because you know something, lads, there are few things more Irish than trying to explain to a group of soaked children why the inflatable castle is now technically a water sport.
And yeah, I know what you mean. One heavy shower and suddenly that bouncy castle has become an extreme survival course. Health and safety needs to be priority there.
I was saying, character is built in difficult conditions. Remember that there.
No, Mick, mildew is built in difficult conditions.
Okay. I think we can leave that there now. We'll forget about bouncy castles, mildew and the rest of it. So on our next show, we're going to be taking a look at the remaining top 5 managers to have a look at the game weeks where they rose and where they fell, transfer history, and we will have a look to see if any of these managers lost a run of themselves within the transfer market there. So listeners, as always, you can get in touch through social media or you can send us a new email to our new email address, Arkham Avengers Podcast at gmail.com, and we're also on YouTube. And listeners, you've probably noticed we've refreshed the logo and the name of the show because now we're officially called the Arkham Avengers Podcast.
Mick had absolutely nothing to do with any of this, I had.
Leadership, Eamon. I always say it's leadership. It's often invisible.
So is Hector currently.
And on that note, thank you to everyone for listening in and tuning in to us and supporting the show and continuing to join us week in, week out. Until the next time, take care of yourselves. Wherever you're in the world, mind yourselves. Have a good day. From all of us here, Slán.